Wednesday, my dude.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Punch Up Pod with Lila and Pat. Pat, what are you saying?
Did I just burp on air?
Nobody heard that, right? That, I thought I heard you talking. How are you? I am not.
Good.
I feel like very out of touch from you.
I know. What are we going to do about that? We need another show every week, so we can just stay in. Let's just keep a live stream going. We'll be like the Weather Channel.
Yeah,
tune in all day, anytime.
Like when you were little, and like if you got up too early, it would be the bars. We'll just have it like going all the time. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very happy to be drinking beer with you and saying hello to all the lefties. Some solidarity out there.
Absolutely.
You got your wine. I'm drinking Mortal Bloom Hazy IPA. Shout out to that. It's pretty good.
Okay.
Pretty good.
Mortal Bloom.
Yeah. Oh, and I wanted to give a shout out to Leafs Lee. This is not a paid promotion, but I'm on Team Orca, and she sells these shirts and among other lefty stuff on her website. Sink the Rich.
Oh, love it.
Team Orca.
That's awesome.
LeafsLee.com. Not a paid promotion.
Right. Unlike Tesla and our president.
Right. How's your world? What's going on?
It's good. It's raining here, so I have even more of an excuse to be lazy and, you know, all that good stuff. I mean, I'm always sort of lazy anyway, but I don't know, Pat, it's all crumbling. It is all crumbling. So before I start crying into my huge bowl of wine, let us start by thanking our wonderful members, our pup heroes and sheroes. I can barely read all of the names. We will eventually do a bigger scroll so we can, you know, people can actually find themselves there. But we really appreciate all of you guys. So thank you very, very much.
And I do want to say, if you see me turning around a lot this show, it's because Strike, the little shithead cat, is on my last nerve, and she has a zoomies, and she keeps running over and biting me in my sock.
She wants to play.
And it's
just a tussle.
You hear her? You probably can't hear her.
I know.
All right, anyway.
My dog's like that also. She runs around with a thing and, you know, a squeaker because she can't go to the park, and so she wants me to chase her around the house and toss a toy. And you know, I had 2 toddlers, and I'm tapped out. I have no energy. They really just tuckered me. They're great kids. I love them so much, but those young years where you're always on really just took it all out of me.
It's a lot.
I got nothing. Okay. So our cheers today is somebody whom we have cheersed to before, probably close to a year ago. So grateful that he is still alive miraculously and continues to do the most heroic work in Gaza. This is Hamada Shu, who cooks for Palestinian children and is just such a beautiful person.
He's a joy.
Exactly. Ramadan Kareem. Ramadan Kareem. Exactly.
He's awesome.
Yeah, he's awesome. Also, I mean, this is so ridiculous. I love shawarma. It never occurred to me that that's how it's made on the spit. I'm always like, how do they get all that? Like, I don't know what. It was just interesting to see it raw. I always see it cooked. So, anyway, so much work to be done with almost no, electricity, water, help avoiding bombs, snipers, and to do that for so many people is just beautiful. So, cheers to him.
Cheers to him. And obviously, the important part here is that despite the media suddenly moving on and acting like this thing is resolved over there, Israel's blocking food still.
Shut off
3
water,
weeks
shut off
almost.
electricity, all aid. I mean, they can't clean their water. They can't clean their sewage plants. 1 in 10 Palestinians has access to water. And I mean, I know where the Western nations are, but also it's interesting that Ansar Allah, the Houthis, have threatened to start their blockade of the Red Sea again if this continues, but they didn't just right away start up their blockade, which would have, I mean, I don't want, I'm doing nothing. I'm sitting here, in
Right.
like a safe space. So,
I
but
have to think it's like sort of the giving peace a chance vibe now versus before. Like there's some hope that we're getting a resolution soon out of this, but we're not. So
yeah, we're not. Although, all right, we should just
move on.
There's so much.
We'll be back to this.
Yeah, we'll be back to this. I mean, that's pretty much what the whole this whole show is about. What are we even fighting for in this country anymore? We don't have healthcare. We don't have a living wage. People are, we don't have the ability to protest in other countries, genocide. So like, what's the freedom? Not really sure what we're fighting for. I know what we are all fighting for, but like when the US uses the defense of our foreign policy as an excuse, what in their minds are they thinking that they are protecting in the US? We're just like a huge bank for all of these fucking asshole CEO capitalist people, because what else are they protecting?
And it's on full display. Like, I mean, 2 months into Trump's term, or third month, it's all it's like capitalist, us getting rich, cutting all your shit. We're cutting everything that could possibly help anyone in the streets, middle class.
Yep.
It's just so obvious. And the biggest thing this week, that the scariest part of it, is this First Amendment stuff of locking up somebody who disagrees with the government. I mean, who basically without cause at all.
They're not even accusing him of a crime. That's what's crazy. Okay, so let's just, get right to the headline. So as we all, I'm sure, know and are horrified by, let's see, let's get to the very top of all of it. A few days before the arrest of Mahmoud Khalil, Rubio, those who support designated terrorist organizations, including Hamas, threaten our national security. The United States has zero tolerance for foreign visitors who support terrorists. Violators of U.S. law, including international students, face visa denial or revocation and deportation. Now, when they went to arrest Mahmoud in the middle of the night or late at night, he had already written to the heads of Columbia, where he was a student, saying that was his position. He was sort of like a chief negotiator of the campus protests, peaceful protests. He was one of the negotiators. Like, he was the one who would try to de-escalate, talked to the school administration. They're not accusing him of doing anything violent. They're not accusing him even of destroying property. It's just wrongthink. And they didn't know when they went to arrest him, ICE, that he actually has a green card. He's not, I mean, all of it would be horrific, but like he is not on a student visa. He is a permanent resident, married to an American citizen who's 8 months pregnant, and you cannot protest a genocide.
I mean, imagine just like, go get him, lock him up, and you don't even know his status. Like, what is this administration? You know, it's just, it's absurd. And the precedent set here, you know, they're going to go, the next move is, well, you donated to this group like Code Pink.
Yep.
And, you know, it turns out Code Pink has got some views that support a guy who's now a terrorist because he was negotiating peace talks on a campus between students and administration that was violently anti-Arab.
Yeah. Where they were doxxed by their own professors, where they were ambushed and attacked by ex-IDF soldiers, because there is a huge group of ex-IDF soldiers. The Columbia has a partnership with Israel, and they end up having a lot of crossover between Israel and Columbia. So there are tons of students who were IDF soldiers. What's it called? The skunk bombs or whatever. They're doxxed by professors. They have some of the wealthiest people in the world getting their names and putting them out to all of the different corporations that they are the heads of to say, never hire these people. Some of them were suspended, weren't able to graduate. Like, you know, they have been the pro-Palestinian students, many of whom are Jewish, by the way, but have been attacked endlessly by the administration, by some faculty, by New York cops, and now ICE. Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry at all. But Columbia became, you know, the central war on this between students and the administration, right? It became an example of it, but not because they were pro-Palestine, because the administration wasn't allowing the pro-Palestinian people a voice. And they were, and yet they're the first university targeted with federal funding being pulled to make an example of them for not being harsh enough on the Palestinian students.
Yeah, there's no winning. They weren't going to win. It's just a way. I mean, you know, everything has an ulterior motive. And basically, it's just a way to, well, first of all, tame any kind of protest and dissent, but also to defund education, which is, you know, a long-term project of Republicans. So then they whisk him away and take him in the middle of the night where he still has not been able to talk to a lawyer.
His own lawyer. Yeah. He came out and did a press conference, said, I haven't talked to my client. This is America.
Removed him to Louisiana, where, you know, he doesn't have any, I don't even know if he knows what's happening for him. It must be terrifying. And and that same prison, they've done reports on, ACLU and human rights groups, that particular prison is where basically immigrants go to be disappeared or taken or disappeared to.
It's the local version of Guantanamo, but we're at a point where there's not enough resistance by reasonable people in politics to any of these actions to where he could be whisked off to Guantanamo for real.
Yep.
And live his entire existence at Guantanamo. And there's no resistance to this. The Democrats are not doing enough on this. You got a handful. You got AOC can't even fucking sign a fucking letter.
Yeah, well, I don't even. What is? Yeah.
there was a thing we were talking back and forth on, and they just sent the letter before I had a chance to address
Somehow
it.
There's always a deadline that Democrats miss. I mean, not that a letter would really do anything, because almost all of the statements have been so mealy mouthed and like, well, I don't agree. And while, but like, Democrats spent, the last year and a half saying that campus protesters were ignorant, uninformed, probably being paid by foreign governments, that they are Hamas supporters, that Hamas is a terrorist organization. Then there's the equation of Hamas with Palestinians, and then any criticism of Israel becomes anti-Semitic. And so all of these mechanisms have been built in, I mean, for decades, of course, but like really supercharged since October 7th, 2023, under Democrats. They passed 2 different measures in Congress. So one of them was the 2023 anti-Semitism bill, which was HR 894. And that one was specifically House of Representatives says that they strongly condemn and denounce all instances of anti-Semitism occurring in the United States and globally. Fine, whatever that means. Reaffirms and reiterates its strong support for the Jewish community at home and abroad. Okay. Calls on elected officials and world leaders to condemn and fight all forms of domestic and global anti-Semitism. Clearly and firmly states that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, and rejects all forms of terror, hate, discrimination, and harassment of members of the Jewish community. So,
yeah, take number 4 out, and we're all going to agree with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but number 4 is the important one.
Anti-Semitism is wrong. Nobody here is anti-Semitic. I would not support that in any. Don't be anti-Semitic. Don't be anti-Arab. Don't be anti-homosexual. Don't be anti-LGBTQ. But you threw in that part about Zionism equals, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, and the whole Democratic Party was like, "Yep, that we're on board with that."
They're on board with that, and then the whole discourse, as we've all seen and covered here for such a long time now, was Jake Tapper and Dana Bash and all of these corporate news outlets talking about how Jewish students feel unsafe on campus.
Yeah,
but only the Jewish students who are pro-Israel and pro-Zionist, because the students who were, again, a lot of these peaceful protests included Jewish anti-genocide protesters as well. We saw them, having Shabbat dinner together or Passover or singing together. Like, they were part of that resistance.
And it wasn't and isn't tokenism. It wasn't MAGA getting the one black guy to put out in front of the public.
Right.
We're talking about organizations that existed before this incident, before October 7th, even to
exactly
fighting, like Jews for Peace, where they were around before all this stuff.
100%. And so this conflation has been happening. It has been a bipartisan effort. And, I think there were 3,500 students who were arrested during these protests under Biden, right? So this is, good friend of the show, Stephen Semler, with his wonderful graphics. So this is under Biden, 3,500 Gaza protesters across 81 U.S. campuses. The Biden administration gave political cover to the universities that employed a violent response to the protests. When President Biden addressed the campus protests on May 2nd, he portrayed the protests as violent and outside the bounds of protected speech. We are not an authoritarian nation where we silence people or squash dissent, but neither are we a lawless country. Order must prevail. A few weeks later, First Lady Jill Biden implied that the protests were largely violent during her appearance on The View. And according to all the data collected, 98% of campus protests were peaceful.
Yeah, and that 2% that's not peaceful, that's like
the Zionists.
A sign was burned or something, like,
or it was Zionists attacking them. The way, they were paid by, like out here at UCLA, everything had been very peaceful on the UCLA campus protests and their encampments. And then these sort of outside agitators came and started trying to completely destroy the village that they had set up,
Absolutely. I was just pointing out that they want to include attacks on property and objects.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, 100%.
So, you got to watch out for even how they classify this stuff.
100%. And even with that, Mahmoud Khalil is not being accused of a single crime. So instead, what they're doing is they started this program called Catch and Release. And sorry, I'm going to read here from the article about Catch and Release. So Trump administration is reportedly using AI technologies, which we know never wrong, in order to label foreign nationals in the U.S. as pro-Hamas and revoke their visas in a program called Catch and Revoke. Sorry, that's Catch and Revoke. AI-driven initiative to cancel the visas of foreign nationals who appear to support Hamas or other designated terror groups. A single social media post from a foreign national that appears to endorse the attack on Israel and looks pro-Hamas could be grounds for visa revocation, the state official reportedly said. Officials will use AI to review tens of thousands of student visa holders' social media accounts. They will also review databases, past protest coverage, and legal cases filed by Jewish students alleging anti-Semitism. The official said, under President Trump, the Immigration Nationality Act is great again.
That's really fucking gross. But this is what we've been screaming about, or at least, I've been really, it's not lost on me that AI is this great transition they want to use to excuse errors that they want to happen. They want to accidentally be too harsh on these people, just like Israel wants to accidentally kill a lot of Palestinians. Right. And so AI is this gap that, while AI is learning and it's not too good yet, they love it the most right now.
Yeah. Yeah. They love it the most. And, I'm going to do what's the thing that Trump says he does when he can't follow through on one thought? He weaves.
Weaving.
I'm going to weave. Because just as a reminder, the UN does not designate Hamas as a terrorist organization. They are a political party who are fighting for their liberation, the liberation of the Palestinian people. They are not designated as a terrorist group. So,
and nowhere in the world is Zionism conflated with anti-Semitism. I mean, the world understands what Zionism is. It's not anti-Semitism. It's anti this belief structure that you are the chosen people. You're entitled to this land. You're entitled to cage Palestinians in this.
Yeah.
You're entitled to make a whole other culture dependent on you.
Yeah, yes, it's a genocide. It's been an ongoing, slow rolling genocide. It's been an apartheid state the whole time. And when people were protesting South Africa's apartheid regime, they weren't arrested for that. And in fact, Colombia had, until recently, they took it down, maybe it's back up, but part of their draw is their student activism over the years, right? In the 60s for civil rights, and against the Vietnam War, and in the 90s against South Africa's apartheid. That was something that they use as a selling point to come to their campus. I wouldn't come to the US and any campus at this point. Whom are we going to be drawing from? And I think almost half of Columbia's whole enrollment over its whole university, it's foreign students. And they just, in the New York Times, just reported a meeting at Columbia where they have now said to their students, if you have a social media page, make sure it's not filled with commentary on the Middle East. This is Jelani Cobb, who is the head of the dean of the journalism school there. He says, nobody can protect you. These are dangerous times. but they have been complicit, and I'm not blaming him specifically because I think it was the administration. I think many of the professors have been vocally supportive of the students, but how are they going to fight it?
And yeah, I'm sure that was a warning to protect people that he put out, right? But just think of the the dean of the School of Journalism telling people to hide their fucking social media. Like, honestly, I don't know why anyone would go to college now. I mean, like, just
it's
almost
$100,000 a year to go to Columbia
for the expense that it costs you, and these fucks at Columbia and the federal government pulling funding. You could be strapped with $150,000 in student loans and not a degree because they found a tweet that you said something anti our government because our government supports a fucking genocide. Like, it's just outrageous.
I mean, it is so outrageous. I don't even know what to do about it. And also the catch and revoke program is based on this McCarthyist 1952 act that they used to target Jewish refugees who had been in displaced persons camps. And mostly those were in Poland, which was close enough to Russia that because of the Cold War and the whole Red Scare, that was a way of coding, just the way this is code for brown people, right? Terrorism. That was for communism. So they used it as part of the Red Scare, but it was primarily to target Eastern European Jews who had been, were displaced persons after the war and were finally getting to come here from Poland and would have to come. And apparently Kushner's family was one of these families. They had to pretend they were German because it was a scary time to be a Polish Jew because maybe you had some of that communism in you. And so that's what it's based on, is this 1952 McCarthyist program to target Jews. So even I know Jewish families who are like, oh yeah, no, my kids, they're not going to any East Coast school because of all the anti-Semitism there. They're actually looking at Southern schools. I'm like, oh my God. You think that the people who are or the Zionists like Jews? No, the only thing they hate more than anti-Zionists are Jewish people. I mean, so many of them are anti-Semites,
right. And without colleges pushing back on this enough, you're giving the right what they've always wanted. They've always thought that colleges were this liberal bastion of liberal views are taught at the colleges. That's where they learn that you should treat all people equally, which we are violently against. But it's always been a myth. It's just that these are people who are educated and discuss these things, and discussing these things ends up pointing out a lot of problems with capitalism and a lot of problems with our government and a lot of problems with all these things. So scapegoating that colleges are this liberal place is what they want. But so now you're going to get a thing where you can't protest Palestine. Now, if you are in economic class and you're like, well, our economic system is fucked up. I'm leaning more towards, I look at socialism and I'm like, oh, now I'm communist because I said socialism, which is close to communism. It's just and even if you're communist, but that's where we're headed. They want these schools scared of educating their own fucking students.
100%. Sorry, foreign terrorist organization, FTO, foreign terrorist organization. And yeah, Jen, I see, I think that was, he wrote the book on healthcare. Stephen, I haven't seen him in such a long time online. No idea. Violet Affleck was carrying his book and he was so happy to see that Thrasher. I think he was a professor at Northwestern and was fired for supporting them. It's so horrible. And now I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, okay. But this was the number one horrifying thing that Biden did when he came into office. That whole domestic violent extremism webpage on the Biden, whitehouse.gov official page, one of the many, and sorry, I have so many graphics here today because I'm just losing my mind that this is even happening. And I just wanted to make sure that when I'm not able to focus, I had a something to go to. So this was in 2021, like February of 2021. Domestic violent extremists, ideological agendas derived from anti-government or anti-authority sentiment, including opposition to perceived economic, social, or racial hierarchies, or perceived government overreach, negligence, or illegitimacy. Also,
I check every box so far. Yeah. What else you got?
I mean,
let's go.
Yeah, it was also like anti-capitalist, DVEs who oppose all forms of capitalism, corporate globalization, governing institutions which are perceived as harmful to society. That makes you a domestic violent extremist, according to Biden.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I am all of those things.
Yeah, I mean,
so,
yeah.
If Biden thinks that, what does Trump think that of me? Trump has permission to just stop me from flying. He can Guantanamo me probably.
Oh yeah, he'll do the whole like shalom Pat, the way he did Shalom Mahmoud, which is like such a gross. The leader of the United States, Shalom Mahmoud, ICE proudly apprehended and detained Mahmoud Khalil, a radical foreign pro-Hamas student on the campus of Columbia University. This is the first arrest of many to come. Good times.
To use ICE like he's somebody who got in this country illegally, when it's just a freedom of speech thing we're talking about here. No. He's going to use ICE. It's like he's just not white, so we're going to use ICE.
Yeah. Well, and now they're using this whole new this was to the Free Press article. He was mobilizing support for Hamas and spreading anti-Semitism in a way that is contrary to the foreign policy of the U.S. So that's what they're using as their reason, their legal reason. They have not, the State Department has not publicly disclosed the specific evidence on which it based its decision to order the arrest of Khalil, who's a green card holder. The INA provision explicitly says people should not be excludable or subject to restrictions or conditions on entry into the United States because of their past, current, or expected beliefs, statements, or associations, if such beliefs, statements, or associations would be lawful within the United States. But it allows for an exception. If the Secretary of State personally determines that the alien's admission would compromise a compelling United States foreign policy interest. So all that had to happen was Rubio had to be like, I find this compelling. It bums me out that he is anti the genocide that we're doing. Compelling.
Right. So here's the thing. If you read the language that they're using here, Rubio can personally determine that you and I are a risk.
Yeah. Although I do think that this, I mean, yes, that's what's coming. It's what they want to do.
Yeah, but, and I understand that this is related to the visa situation, and we don't have, we're not on visas, and they're separating that that part out. But the precedence of the massive authority being unchecked, unclaimed. This guy has no lawyer, and he's not in contact with his lawyer. It's really damning for what's coming for all of us. So this is one of those situations where, I didn't speak up for and then it happened. And then I didn't speak up for like, if you're not speaking up for this and you're letting Republicans who ran on this whole First Amendment thing forever, and, if they're allowed to just sweep a guy up in the middle of the night and use ICE, even though he's here perfectly legally with a goddamn green card.
And he was one of the peaceful negotiators. I mean, and by the way, like, this is why to have an opposition party that helps write the Patriot Act, as Biden did, pushes to then, for the next 25 years, continue making the ability to surveil and criminalize wrong speak.
Cop cities.
All the cop cities. Yeah.
Democrats behind all the cop cities, which are going to be the ones going after the protesters.
I mean, Kimmy, that makes me so sad. And yet I totally get it. Kimmy says, my son is making me take down my social media when he applies to college next year. He thinks I'll make him get rejected. You know, it's really hard. Like, I've written a few things for the World Socialist website, and they always advise me to do it anonymously. Because we all know they'll use anything to criminalize, anti-government speaking, anti-foreign policy of a genocide. Like, all of those movies that we all saw about, the House Un-American Activities Committee as like this ugly, disgusting time from the 50s and the blacklist and all of that, it came right back. I mean, I know it has existed for people in this country who are Black and brown or activists the whole time, but it really was then completely just embraced by the people who are supposed to be fighting for the First Amendment and what makes America America and civil liberties.
Yeah, and I mean the important part here is, okay, how do we get out of this? And the Democrats are not going to get us out of this. They're not fighting at all. They want misery for 2 years at least, so they can get a couple seats back in the midterms without too much work. And hey, maybe they get the presidency in 4 years. But either way, the money pipeline just keeps coming into Democrats. The worse and worse this thing is for the country.
Yep. Yeah. All right, let's see. This was interesting. If you don't mind my doing a total weave just for a second.
Weave it.
So in Israel, in the middle of the ceasefire, when they are continuing to slaughter Palestinians, I think they've killed almost 200 in Gaza and over 100 in the West Bank, which isn't even part of what the situation was supposed to be, right? So it's just a whole land grab. They're demolishing the West Bank and then, of course, southern Lebanon. But just talking about just the ceasefire, cutting off water, electricity, aid, all of that kind of stuff with no response from Hamas. So Israel has continually broken the ceasefire, but we're still in stage one. I think the one thing was Hamas didn't return a few hostages who were already deceased, probably from Israel's bombing. But anyway, that's the only infraction. So one of Trump's envoys to the Middle East, who is negotiating, was talking about negotiating with Hamas. Because if you're negotiating, you gotta negotiate with the enemy. Otherwise, what kind of diplomacy are you doing, right? So this is him on CNN with Jake Tapper. Give me a second. Oh my goodness. Okay, sorry. So many pieces of material here. Yeah, I'm coming.
Oh, I
I'm
thought you were
coming.
going to say
Give me 1 second.
so many delicious glasses of wine.
That too. Okay. So it's Adam Bowler on CNN talking to Jake Tapper, and listen to how Tapper sets up the question.
Understand why Netanyahu, Dermer, others might be upset.
I do understand. I spoke with Ron, and I'm sympathetic. He has someone that he doesn't know well, making direct contact with Hamas. Maybe I would see them and say, look, they don't have horns growing out of their head. They're actually guys like us. They're pretty nice guys. So he doesn't know me, and there are big stakes. He lives in a country where if it sets certain precedents, then it will hurt or help a lot of other people. So I understand the consternation and the concern, and I wasn't upset. At the same time, we're the United States. We're not an agent of Israel. We have specific interests at play.
I mean, I have to say, hearing a Republican say that was shocking. I welcome it, but they're guys like us. They don't have horns. I don't know. that's how you do diplomacy. Now, of course, then they turned around and just like keep sending more weapons to Israel. So,
Yeah,
but like even to say those words to Jake Tapper.
Well, how do you get a peaceful solution here on any level if you don't talk to the other side? And you've already labeled the entire other side Hamas, and half of them probably are Hamas, but that's your enemy. Like, you have to come to terms with them because they're the ones, at least, that are the violent people fighting you is going to be largely Hamas people. So you need the Hamas people to put down their guns.
And how are they going to put down their guns? Why would they ever put down their guns? Yeah. Fuck that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I know you don't think they should, but like, come on. We all know the way to get rid of Hamas and Hezbollah. We all know. Stop occupying Palestinian territory.
Well, and that's where I was headed with it. Is
I know. I'm not saying that. I'm not like, no, but you know that yet.
No. But I'm just saying this is also just a huge farce because Hamas is really not like they're negotiating about releasing dead prisoners because there is no actual violent, like current threat to Israel from Hamas.
Right.
This whole thing is basically a farce, but I'm just using their terms of like, the other guy is Hamas. You need to negotiate with Hamas.
Right. 100%. Of course. And for Jake Tapper to set it up that way. And again, to go back to like all these kids who feel unsafe on campus from what? From hearing an opposing position? That's it.
These guys, they know what they're doing. These news people lying about this. There's so many Palestinian stories they could have covered. If you want to pretend that these protests are violent against Israeli students, how do you not show the massive amount of evidence the other way that 100%. Palestinian students have been violently attacked by fucking governors, by fucking literal politicians, putting these people at risk by using their names in public and going after them and targeting them.
Yeah.
Like that's real fucking hate crime.
Absolutely. And it's threatening and it's terrifying. And it's just because they're Palestinians. And it is because the mere existence of Palestinians is seen as a threat to Zionist Jews. That's it. I mean, that's like even before October 7th, I mean, obviously this racism has been going on and the genocide going on for decades, but I can't remember why this came up. There was a hospital in London where they had hand-drawn artwork on the wall from Palestinian kids, and some of the Jewish patients complained they didn't want to have to see Palestinian art. And the hospital issued this apology that they had, upset the sensibilities of their Jewish patients. Like, what are you even talking? Like, it is so disgusting. I can't even believe that it's persisted. And again, the parties of opposition have to not do these mealy mouth, it's not complicated. None of this is complicated. Israel has been slaughtering Palestinians, stealing their land, and humiliating, denigrating, starving them for decades. So yes, Palestinians have the right to self-determination and self-defense.
And look, there's so many opportunities lobbed up to Democrats, even if you want to mealy mouth it and say, okay, but this was all complicated, but now we have an agreement. So right. Trump, you need to hold yourself to the agreement. Israel is not doing their part here. Israel is still not letting food in for 3 weeks. Like, that's an easy thing. Like, hey, right. we want this peace thing. You don't have to even take a side on it. You just have to say part of the peace agreement, it was X and Y, and X is not happening.
Yep.
Democrats can't even do that. They are so fucking equally owned.
They are totally equally owned. And once again, none of this will change until we get money out of politics, because they are owned because they are paid well to be owned. And also there's just been so much Hasbara. I think a lot of people are deeply ignorant. They don't know. They believe what they say. There's been, somebody posted today, and it was a TikTok, and it was showing like maybe like little clips from 10 different shows over the last 5-10 years, where they were just like subtle references to Israel and like flag or how great it is to go back to Israel, and all this stuff, where we would never have done that about South Africa. But the propaganda has been so overwhelming, so total, that people truly, I think, don't understand what the situation is. So that, and I think obviously that's a big part of the TikTok and all of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a part of it. You've got, if you look at the Democratic Party as a business instead of as a government thing that's going to help people or something, if you go to work every day at a business and everybody knows this thing is bad for our business and we've been doing this practice wrong and we can't talk about that, and the people that come in to train you for your job are like training you that stuff you keep hearing is wrong, and that's kind of what the party is. It's like, it's consultants that they put out to people to spin the views that they want pushed from the top because they're getting all this donation money at the top and they don't want to be anti-Israel at the top, so they got to put out the stuff. Same thing for Medicare for All, for example. They send their consultants out with skewed data, but they convince local mayor people and anyone running for an election in any level of the Democratic Party where you merit a consultant that is paid for by the DNC or DCCC. That consultant is going to come in and push those big global objectives of stopping Medicare. Now, they may not even think they're doing it, but they're told to push this data that the population is not going to like it if you push this lefty thing of helping people, and SNAP is not polling.
That's why Democrats lose. That's why Democrats lose.
Yeah, no, but that's it. That's entirely it. But it all comes from the top down to the entire party.
Yeah.
And
everybody has an AIPAC guy, except for Thomas Massey. I think he's the only one.
Right.
Everybody
else.
I
think as much as some of these people may have some good intentions, they're in that world of working in this job for this shitty fucking team. And if you speak up against your shitty fucking team, you're not going to last, which is why there's no hope in the Democratic Party. We're not going to take over the Democratic Party ever.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. Just a reminder, UN Hamas is not a terrorist group. This is from UN Relief Chief Martin Griffiths. Just to clarify, Hamas is not on the list of groups designated as terrorist organizations by the United Nations Security Council. Even the New York Times, right after October 7th, the person who, one of their legal consultants who went through language and things like terrorist designation fell under his purview. He's like, we don't talk about them, Hamas, as terrorist organizations, because as we would get into the definition of what that means, it would be very clear that one, they're not a terrorist organization, but two, many of US allies are. And so we don't do that. And then he basically had to resign because he was pressured into it. But like what you were saying about the slippery slope, they are now looking into Act Blue, because just what you were saying, like, oh, if you support Code Pink, they are now, is this Beitar? Who is it? Oh, no, the amid turmoil, Act Blue faces call for terror financing investigation. A Republican lawmaker has asked the Treasury to look into credible allegations against the Democratic fundraising platform. So if you ever gave money to one of the members of the squad, Rashida Tlaib or AOC, Ilhan Omar, whatever, anyway, they could look at that and say, like, you gave to a terrorist because she is criticizing Israel. And when you criticize Israel, it's the same as criticizing Jews, and you're anti-Semitic.
And that's where we're headed. And the Democrats are not resisting enough to stop us from getting there.
At all. Not even a drop. All right, let's see, because there were a few good clips of people who are actually speaking up. New York City mayor candidate Zohran Mamdani, how's the energy that they all should be bringing?
How many million Amendment, Tom Homan? When we asked Tom Homan, all he had to answer for that cruelty was a smirk. Because there is no answer for taking a man from his pregnant wife, who is due to deliver their newborn child in a month, from their Columbia University apartment, a day after that same man, Mahmoud Khalil, wrote to Columbia University and said he feared for his life. The cowardice that is on display across our city and our state is unacceptable. New Yorkers are looking to us. They are looking to their leaders for courage and for conviction. And what they are finding instead is collaboration. And that is just simply unacceptable.
I really, really hope that he doesn't end up disappointing me, because I
God, please don't. I dig him too. And the message is, so look, New York is such a melting pot of cultures. And
Yeah.
like, see, it's everybody sees this. And you know, if it's reported on honestly in the press, it's so clear to everybody they don't have a right to do this shit. This is beyond the pale. And you even have a lot of Republicans thinking this is disgusting. You know, it's not, you don't get that message top down from leadership.
Right.
But regular folks are like, what the fuck, man? This is like Musk coming in. Like we wanted a little racism, but this is a little like, what? I don't know.
I mean, if it hasn't happened yet, I would think it's going to happen soon. I mean, the whole thing was like, we're going to be free speech, and those snowflakes who can't, we're bringing comedy back. People can say anything that they want, but not pro-terrorism. And by the way, all Palestinians are terrorists.
Yeah, but you can't say anything anti-government, but we're also libertarians who don't want an government to exist. You know, all these messages get conflated, and they hit each other, and like your cognitive dissonance if you're a MAGA guy and you're seeing Elon Musk, this fucking nerd that you hate.
Yeah, fucking
who's
Nazi.
the electric car guy. Yeah, but he's the electric car guy, and your whole party was against electric cars. Just like last year, you're like, electric cars are fucking stupid. You guys are gay. You know, that's
why he
the
did
R
the
word,
Hitler
and then and now
yeah.
that guy's running the country. Like,
yeah. I mean,
things are rubbing and like,
I think you're right. Yeah. I mean, the ADL, who says that any criticism of Israel makes you a terrorist, congratulates Trump, asks him right away to make sure that he, comes down on the student protests. We must confront the rising anti-Semitism on college and university campuses, push for the release of all hostages in Gaza. Of course, they never mention all the hostages in Israel, and work towards peace in the Middle East. Sure, whatever that means. But meanwhile, then they put out this statement in defense of Elon Musk, and it was an awkward gesture. So saying from the river to the sea is anti-Semitic, but a fucking Heil Hitler, Sig Heil, it's awkward. It's awkward.
Yeah, the double Sig Heil was awkward. The Steve Bannon following it up with his own Sig Heil was
and
awkward.
Then he's invited to Israel, gets like, the red carpet rollout. Because it's
of
white
course,
supremacist ideology. It has nothing to do with being pro-Jewish. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, it's just
yelling over you. Sorry. I'm so mad.
No, I'm yelling back. We're just this whole show should be you and I yelling. We need a third person on here who's like the
referee.
Staunch, a staunch Democrat. So we could just yell at that.
Yell
person.
at that. Yeah. And mute them. Just take out all of our aggression on that person.
If you'd like that job, DM me. We'll bring you on one show.
But and also, okay, so all of this is not going unnoticed by other world leaders. The U.S. was just added to the Civicus Monitor watch list, which is part of Human Rights Watch, because of our declining civil liberties in this country. Interesting. Jake Sullivan, one of the key collaborators in Biden's regime and helped, sell and pull off this genocide, is going to join Harvard Kennedy School faculty in April. And Naftali Bennett was just invited to Columbia last week. That's all fine. That doesn't make people feel unsafe. Like genocidal maniacs are coming as guests to these universities where they're praised, that makes me feel unsafe. All of this makes me feel unsafe.
Yeah, and I think we should probably spin the wheel for some joy, but I think
Really?
when we get back, maybe we'll point out Gavin Newsom. You know, he's on a roll. Our last show, by the way, I think you guys probably know, but they pulled our last show because of our clip showing Gavin Newsom, who is using capitalism as a shield to appeal to Republican voters. He has a whole podcast where he has on these worst. He's 0 for 3. He's got his first 3 guests are the worst Republicans on earth.
Wait, who else? I know those 2, but who was the third one? Okay, so the first one was Charlie Kirk. That's what we covered, and our show was blocked, and we're fighting it for fair use. But also, I know Due Dissidents, and I think another show also got theirs when they covered it blocked.
Yeah, I don't know who the third was. I think it was announced. I didn't see anything on it, but who's the third? And somebody help me out. Unless I'm just making it up. I could be making it up. It could
99%
be like
no, I'm kidding.
7.
I'm sure that's what he's going to do because that's his whole thing. Sorry, I see you guys. Yes, I know those 2, Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk, but Pat mentioned there was a third one, and I just didn't. I thought maybe I hadn't heard, but
yeah, I think there is, but I could just be lying and making it up.
Yeah, baby.
I'm a terrorist sympathizer, so
that's you.
Anything is possible.
While you do the timeline cleanse, I am going to refill my drink because it's very low.
Do we do a Trump parody or a test? What are we moving into next? Tesla stuff or Trump
yeah, sure. Let's go to the,
all right,
the reason.
Let's show Droovy. Let's show Droovy.
I called you out here today because I thought everybody should know how much I love Tesla.
Wunderbar, even so he does not drive, it is a great car for him, and for you. Didn't that fucking land jellyfish just spend his whole campaign shit-talking electric cars? We would like to move on to the next question, please. Okay, did your mom give birth at the top of a fucking ladder? You motherfucker.
It's okay, Elon, it's fine, it's fine. Folks, we have great pricing though, you're gonna love it, it's gonna be very affordable.
I'd gladly spend the $14 it costs to throw one fucking egg at that thing. Please disregard the Canadians. The cars are very safe and efficient. Hey, Elon, were you a leash kid?
What are you talking?
You seem like you were a fucking leash kid.
Please leave Elon alone. He's doing a great job, folks. He's being a patriot.
Why are you even out here? No one wants to buy a car from the dude that has to wear a life jacket to eat soup.
Mr. President, will you be buying or leasing today? Haha.
Really? An entire fucking career in journalism, you reach the president and you ask a stupid fucking question like that?
But I was just...
You're more disappointing than an unsalted pretzel.
Alright, everybody, who's gonna buy one with me?
Do you even fit in that fucking thing? You're like 6'5", horizontally.
Does anyone have any actual questions?
Does the inside smell like schnitzel?
What?
If it explodes within 30 days, can I return it?
They do not explode.
Will everyone still hate me after I return the swastika?
This is enough, we are done here. You look so much skinnier than tomorrow.
Yay, Tesla!
I mean, it kind of makes me smile, but even just anything with Trump makes me, he's just so repulsive, but it is funny. I get it. I get it.
I looked at a bunch of that guy's videos that some of them are funnier than that one. I just thought it was timely because of the Tesla. So I pulled that one. His
absolutely.
Other stuff is actually better, but
well, I liked it. It gave me a chance to finish one glass and start another one. And you just saw, right, that Donald Trump warns Tesla protesters as he buys one of Elon Musk's cars, and he says that anybody who defaces, he will classify violence against Tesla dealerships as domestic terrorism.
that is just the wildest shit from the president on the United States in front of the White House, buying a fucking car of the guy running our government, whose
doing a whole ad
profit,
for it. Yeah.
But his whole existence is leeching off of our government with unearned government contracts. That's how this guy got rich and got to say he was a fucking genius.
Yeah.
He's done fuck all but cut every social net. He's cutting it all right in plain sight, like literally cutting NASA to give his own fucking company some contracts. And now we got a used car salesman, Trump, who in his first term, this is how fucking stupid our country is. In his first term, he laid out on a table all the Trump products, and we had to look at Trump steaks. And like, this is the sleaziest dumbest salesperson who's filed bankruptcy fucking 5 times.
7. Are you talking about Trump? Or Elon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Trump.
I think 7.
But between that and he's the guy who's the used car salesman who bankrupted himself in his business a million times, who
and
his whole profit
casino, like how the fuck
his whole
do you
profit,
bankrupt a casino?
yeah, and I worked in casinos for years. You can't bankrupt a casino. That's real
ridiculous.
fucking work.
Yeah.
He's handing the government over because he just doesn't want to do it to this billionaire guy who wants to cut everything on earth, who also is just a fail up guy who just was sleazy. Like, what are we doing? And now we're seeing the cars. We have a visual representation of a used car salesman in front of the fucking White House doing this in front of us all, talking about how he's going to buy a fucking Tesla and it's illegal to fucking attack Teslas. You know, like, I mean, it's a fucking hate crime. It's terrorism. If there's ever been an opportunity to get Republicans on board with us to fucking hate this entire fucking system, 2 months in, we're seeing this. Like, this is opportunity, honestly.
Yeah, I hope they want their own future more than they want to own the libs, you know. Like, I hope it becomes clear for them. And I think it will. I mean, as our, you know, we'll get into the economy a bit later, but you know, the Dow tanks, the NASDAQ tanks, of course, that doesn't really affect regular people, whether it's up or down. That's, you know, rich people feelings, all the stock market stuff. But none of these tariffs is going to help working class people. They're cutting Medicaid, they're cutting childcare, they're defunding education. They have no answer for our healthcare crisis. Like, I mean, I do think that eventually it's going to be clear, but by then, like, well, they have locked us all up in the dead of night at one of these Cop City or, you know, hellholes in Louisiana or whatever the hell. There's a reason that Biden kept sending all the money to his private prison pals. Yeah, sorry.
Well, no, but I've been listening to a lot of talk radio on the right.
Yeah.
Which is equivalent to listening to MSNBC on the left. Like,
Right.
You know, I like to hear out what kind of shit propaganda is being spewed to people. And what's interesting is this last week was the first time I heard it. They're pivoting away from Trump as a god, give him time, let's let Elon cook and do his thing, to, well, he's making some big fucking mistakes with these tariffs.
All right.
And here's where this comes into, all right, the right-wing radio sphere of conservative talk show shit, it's not really owned by the president, it's owned by the party.
Right.
And Trump's own, you know, contractual relationship to policy, how does it benefit him and his friends, isn't trickling down to the fucking Republican donor class that supports the right-wing radio.
Right.
So they're starting to say, oh, he's fucking our economy up. So there's a pivot. It's a very clear change this week on right-wing radio.
Yeah. I mean, unless the tax cuts pacify them.
Well, they'll be back on board.
Yeah.
But they're hitting him publicly to say,
Yeah.
dude, you're gone too far. Step
Yep.
back from this. This is all this stuff is benefiting you and not us.
Yep.
And they, you know, if they keep saying that message, it'll really tank his whole agenda.
Yeah.
So he's gonna step back from this stuff, which he's starting to do a little bit.
I think so too. I mean, I hope. I don't have much faith in people whose only religion is making the most money, like a pathological greed and need for more. But I think you might be right. Did I just say that? And
you might be right.
I mean,
put that up. Put that on a banner.
I think like so many qualifiers. I think that possibly just today for this moment, you might be right.
Okay.
Put that on a banner. Okay, so just for anybody who didn't see it, this was Trump getting into Elon's car after this, you know, and as somebody mentioned, I'm sorry because it was way back in the comments, but you know, I think X was there with Elon because he uses his kid as a shield for sure. And I didn't know that about the is he the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey, that he also does that with this kid. That's interesting. But anyway, this was after the little spiel on the White House lawn to hawk Teslas. This was Trump.
I'll watch Secret Service go crazy. Thank you.
I mean, if you actually drove it around, it would really be wild.
Wow. That's beautiful. This is a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer. That's beautiful. Wow.
Must be so interesting to just not give one morsel of an iota of care for anybody but your own comfort. It's like astonishing.
And you know, he would be, if he wasn't being run by Elon right now,
Right.
if he had gotten in that car and Elon isn't in the picture, and it was 2 years ago and the Republican Party was anti-electric vehicles,
Right.
he would get in there and say, what the fuck is this stupid computer shit? Like, what is this laptop? Like, it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. There's a computer. I just want to drive, you know,
He would
burn
totally
some gas.
make fun of it. Absolutely.
And it shows how out of touch he is that he's seeing a computer on a dashboard for the first time.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Like, remember what was it?
Everybody's seen
George W., who didn't, or no, the dad, HW, who didn't know the price of stamps or something.
Yeah. Or Hillary walking into that apartment and just being
Do people live in something this small? It's like it's smaller than her closet. This was a Tesla ad or an anti-Tesla ad in North London, the Fast and the Fure, and it's got Elon Musk there with it doing a Sig Heil, and it says Heil Tesla.
Love it.
Tremendous.
More, harder, faster.
Yeah.
Let's go.
But I mean, yeah, I guess that's terrorism. I don't know if they're going to ban that. I just wanted to quickly, because I know we've shown the videos before of Chomsky and talking about, you know, the designation of terrorism. But this is the former head of Shin Bet, which is Israel's spy agency, talking about it. And I just want everybody to see it. It's only a minute.
If you were a Palestinian living in the West Bank or Gaza, what would your view be of Israel?
I would fight against Israel in order to achieve my liberty.
How would you fight? How dirty?
I would do everything in order to achieve my liberty, and that's it.
You've spent a lot of time studying this, obviously, as head of Shin Bet. Could you describe what is the reality for Palestinians here?
A life of people who dream about freedom and don't see it. Whether we like it or not, we control the life of millions. You cannot deter a person or a group of people if they believe that they have nothing to lose. We Israelis, we shall have security only when they will have hope.
How powerful are Ben Gvir and Smotrich, and what do you think of them?
I see them as terrorists.
Here.
Yeah. And thank you. I see a couple of you are telling me it was a scanner, which is hilarious. You didn't know what a scanner was.
Wasn't it Romney who couldn't use the subway or something? Who was it?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I feel like it
there's
was
like,
Romney.
there are so many there's so many guardrails that we should be putting in place to preserve, to ensure, to actually facilitate having a democracy that just aren't there. But one of them should be having to just like live on federal minimum wage. Just give it a shot. Like,
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, something.
There has to be something, because there's just such a disconnect from the people who are stealing everything from us.
Yeah.
Yes. No, John Brown did nothing wrong, and Nat Turner did nothing wrong, you know. And boy, the head of Shin Bet knows exactly who Israel is. And yes, Brett, as you're saying, the King David Hotel, USS Liberty, the Levant affair, like I mean, if any, well, first of all, the U.S. is probably the biggest terrorist, you know, organization regime in the world. And, you know, this is our outpost that we funded for decades now, and they are absolutely terrorists.
Yeah. So a couple things. Well, before we move on from Elon, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
Because we're going to move on to
Yeah,
others.
yeah,
no,
yeah.
no, totally fine. Good news, because I think we should bring some good news.
Yeah,
year to date, which is just 2 months,
right.
3 months. But people are shitting on Tesla stock.
Yeah, that's
his stock, which is his fortune. I mean, I know he has other means of wealth, mostly from the government, of course, but make him fucking pay, you know,
Yep.
because I guarantee you all the show the lib, like, you know, own the lib stuff on the right is going to make them buy a Tesla. They're not going to buy Teslas
right
to own the libs.
No.
Libs are the only people buying Teslas.
And didn't he cancel Biden's like buyback or tax credit or something for EVs? So like
Probably, I don't know.
Yeah.
Our country is really not interested in moving to electric. I mean, that's just the reality. It's a selling point. We should be.
Yeah.
But a lot of it, look, climate change is real. All that stuff is very, very fucking real. There's a benefit to moving to electric vehicles, but also our grid cannot support it, which is just the reality.
I mean, the way to deal with it is mass transit, free mass transit.
Yes,
that would be the
electric
way better.
vehicle,
like,
electric mass transit is the way, right? Not you in your home going off of gas, but please do by all means. Anyway, back to Trump, and this is such a fucking gross. Like, we are so looking at
just like naked, you know, like shilling.
Yeah, I mean, look, when I avoid being an accelerationist, but it's accelerated, right? So here we are. It's all fucking obviously terrible in front of us. Shit like this is the biggest opportunity on earth for us to look at what he's saying and doing and say, that's not your guy either on the right. You regular people, you just want fucking healthcare too.
Yeah.
You don't want him pimping fucking Teslas that he told you were shitty electric cars 2 years ago. Like, you know, like here he is, fully fucking owned.
I mean, I have to believe that, yeah, and Zainab, you're right, the Hatch Act, right? That's where, like, they're not supposed to shill for things.
It's like the emollient.
I feel like, okay, so then what? Like, Elon doesn't care. He's not a government, like he wasn't elected there, so it doesn't matter really. I mean, it affects his bottom line. Of course it does, but he'll, I'm sure, find a way around that. But yes, his brand is becoming toxic. Trump is not going to run again for president, doesn't care. So it's going to take the Republicans who are now concerned that if they say anything negative about Elon or Trump, Elon, who has all the money in the world, will fund primaries against him. They're already saying they're going to do that with Thomas Massie, of course, because he's the lone Republican who has voted against some of these, you know, horrible pro-Israel bills and other things that he just doesn't believe in, even though I disagree with his whole ideology pretty much. But like, he's a believer. He sticks to it, and they are offended. So Republicans in office who are now avoiding town halls because they get yelled at by their constituents are also having to battle, well, is it worth it for me to fight for my constituents who I really don't give a fuck about, and then have to deal with a primary, an ugly primary by the richest man in the world and the most powerful man in the world? Like, I just, you know, I don't know if that's going to actually go for them. I think most people have no courage, no spine. And the only reason I'm saying this is because I was going to do it, and we can do it in a second. But like, I want to talk about Brianna Joy Gray having Jamal Bowman on, because that was a train wreck. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Well, but what we know, all you have to do is look at history in the last year or two, right? So the threat of Israeli money, Zionist money,
right,
going against progressives shut progressives down.
Yep.
It shut Democrats down. It's doing the same thing on the right. So we're not waiting for Republicans to wake up and push back on this politically is not going to happen.
Right. Especially when you don't have many options. Like, then, so who do you vote for? You just don't vote? Then it doesn't matter also, right? Like, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I say it's an opportunity for us, it's not an opportunity for Democrats to win the election. It's not an opportunity for us to shit on Republicans more. It's to get regular people on board with our message, because they should be able to see that Musk is running our government, a shitty billionaire. Zionists run our government as well. Israel, you don't support the genocide. The big pharma companies run our healthcare. You want fucking healthcare. So these are all opportunities that are just stacked up, and your solution isn't a Republican, because they're all cucked to Musk. I mean, let's use your language on that one. I don't mind using that one, but don't use the R word.
I know. No,
But
I was watching Jen Perlman's show yesterday, and Peter said something about them all being pussy cucks, and I was like, that's perfect. They are all pussy cucks or cuck pussies or whatever he said. But yeah, they're just like the most vile, cowardly. I mean, being a coward implies that they believe in something that they are too weak to fight for. So it's not that they're cowards. They're just soulless, money grubbing whores, all of them.
Yeah, so they're not going to. The Republican Party is not going to shift against Trump anytime soon. That could have happened, but they locked in Elon, and I think that just seals the deal between Elon's money and Zionist money. You can't turn against anyone in our government on either side. Like, progressive is not going to usurp the Democratic Party either. It's the same game on both sides. So,
I mean, as you said, there were 14 people who signed the letter disparaging the illegal, unconstitutional locking up of a green card, peaceful protester with a green card for
14.
no crime.
And remember when we heard about the squad, just get in there, bring the ruckus. You're going to infect other Democrats and convert people over.
Yeah.
And you got AOC doesn't even sign the fucking feckless letter.
It's just a weird timing. The schedule was off. It was really hard.
I had a TikTok to do.
Yeah.
It was like
a thirst trap Insta. Snapchat or whatever the hell. Okay. Can we just talk really quickly about the bad faith episode with Jamal Bowman? So first of all, I, say this every time. I just adore Brianna Joy Gray. Like, even every once in a while when I think I agree pretty much everything, but she just carries herself so well. She's able to have really difficult conversations, doesn't mind when people push back. She's open to all discussions. She's not like a snowflake, and so bright, and she has a through line. So she brings on this man, Jamal Bowman, who was primaried with AIPAC funded opponent, and who is one of the members, like a second incoming wave of squad members when he came in. And it was right around the time that he came in when Biden was elected. So that was his beginning. And that was when there was this opportunity, as we all know, that floated on the left. And the most prominent person pushing it, I think, was Jimmy Dore, but it was based on a tactic that had been written about by the DSA, but because he sort of had the biggest online platform at the time, he was the one really pushing it, but a lot of other leftists picked it up and talked about it, and it was to withhold their vote from Nancy Pelosi becoming the Speaker of the House again, because Democrats had just gotten back the majority in the House, and to withhold their vote in order to push for a $15 minimum wage, right? It was for the minimum wage aspect of it.
It was Nancy Pelosi. Just bring a fucking vote, even if it loses.
Yeah.
to elevate the issue, as she herself had said a million times in her career, even a losing vote elevates the issue because people see, they see it brings the issue to light. Of course, when she became speaker, she's like, I won't bring a vote up that doesn't pass. So that became the whole narrative of that just sunk the whole Democratic Party, to be honest.
Yeah, it sank the whole thing. And there was so much pushback when the force the vote, I think you and I were both pro force the vote, but like the big platform people were talking about it. The pushback from the very few either politicians or other sort of left progressive types of people would say, well, what happens then if Nancy Pelosi doesn't become the speaker? But that wasn't even a possibility. That was very clearly explained. That even if they withheld their vote, it would just be like a show of solidarity and that we have some power and we're willing to leverage it. That's the whole reason we're here.
Right.
So all of that stuff.
But you had the Democratic Party pretending that force the vote would lead to
is perilous because it could give it.
But
to
it would
Kevin
get
McCarthy.
a right-wing speaker, McCarthy. McCarthy would become speaker somehow if we kept doing this, which was nonsense. And nobody should have ever pushed that. Anyone who pushed that was garbage.
And then there was a second tactic, which I got a lot on my timeline, which was Jimmy Dore's an asshole. And I was like, I'm not talking about Jimmy Dore. Like, he didn't invent force the vote. He's talking about it. But like, whether you agree or not, it's a great idea. It's a great strategy. There are thousands of other people who do agree with it. So you're just going to take one person whom you don't like and decide that whole tactic should be flushed. Yeah. It was ridiculous. So we know that anytime anybody in the squad, especially the newer members, and I think it was actually Cori Bush, who was also just ousted by an AIPAC funded primary challenger, was asked about do you guys vote in unison? Do you strategize as the squad? And she's like, no, nobody really, nope, we don't do that. Yeah. Why would you? Yeah. So two people can Sinema and Manchin can tank a whole, really important priority for Biden. But we at one point had 8 or 10, 12 members of LOL, but whatever, the squad. I keep doing this. I'm sorry. But anyway, so Brianna has him on bad faith. Jamal Bowman. Sorry. I'm not speaking in full sentences. And he's really arch and kind of crappy right from the beginning. And she's so pleasant and kind and asks well, what was the strategy? Well, I just got there. I didn't even know what there wasn't a strategy. I just got there. I didn't even know what was happening. Okay. Well, that's a problem because let's look at your tenure. What did you accomplish? What did Democrats accomplish? Except for not getting the minimum wage, not getting a public option in for healthcare, doing a genocide, starting funding a proxy war with Russia, and then handing all three, both chambers of Congress and the executive back to Trump and to Republicans. Do you maybe want to analyze that a little bit? And she wasn't even the way
she's so kind about it.
Shittier than any moment in the whole hour and a half talk she had. She's so kind, but he was such a dick the whole time. So this is a small clip of it, but this was a squad member. This was one of the good ones. And this is where he is now after just 4 years in Congress?
Well, I didn't say anything out of pocket. So if you can point to something that I said that was out of pocket, we can discuss it. But I was not bombastic. I was incredibly measured. I constantly tried to call people in. I stood in solidarity with other very measured voices like Crystal Ball and Kyle Kalinske and Chris Hedges and Cornel West. And all of us were roundly ignored. We were ignored. And I thought it was frankly very disrespectful.
Maybe Jimmy messed it up for everybody. Maybe Jimmy messed it up
but this is what I want to get to. Because you said this to me in our call, and I have to admit, it was frustrating to me. I'm not going to let someone who I personally disagree with get in the way of a good idea. And I do think that it is incumbent on those with more power and influence and platform and just emotional maturity to use that to advance our collective ends. Do I think personally that every single thing that Jimmy Dore has argued or stood behind or the tone he's used is what I would choose to do in my life? Absolutely not. But I was keen enough to see him as an ally in a moment on a specific issue where he had the biggest platform of all of us, because nobody with a bigger platform like yourself would get involved. And so to the constant effort to divide and conquer and make us fight within ourselves, I refuse. I'm going to continue to call people in. I am. And I would have liked to have seen that approach from the squad, especially people like Justin Jackson. There was so many good faith, respectful interlocutors. I literally wrote it down in an article so no one would even have to hear a voice involved. Just the plan, straight facts, no chaser.
Yeah.
And
So
still there was a refusal to engage with the idea.
And the whole time, and sorry, I thought, thank you, the runs. I think it was for Medicare for all, because that was the thing where it's like, it's never going to pass, because they were told that they were going to get the 15. Yeah. Anyway,
sorry.
It's
I
okay.
cut you off. The forced vote was for Medicare for all. The reason that the squad and AOC excused not supporting the force the vote is they wanted to save their leverage for the minimum wage, which they never fucking did.
Well, the parliamentarian, Zainab, thank you. Brand new Congress did force the vote in 2018, pushing Barbara Lee for speaker, and we did get some concessions and legislation drafted. It works. Yes, and thank you for the super chat. Cheers. Thank you. It does work. Of course, leverage works. We know it because we see Republican people and the rotating villains of the Democratic Party use it all the time. That kind of, leveraging whatever power you have.
Of course.
But that was so embarrassing. The way he was maybe Jimmy Dore shouldn't have done it. Well, and then he was like, well, what about you? Why don't you tell me but you didn't convince us. So are you looking at your strategy? Maybe you got it wrong. You couldn't convince us to do a force the vote. So where did you do it wrong? It was really prickly.
During that entire force the vote thing, I was on the side of force the vote, but I was sort of walking the middle of like, hey, we don't need to necessarily say that the people that don't support it even are the worst people. Like, there's a strategy, maybe let's give them some room, but I was still forced to vote. But let's see, let's pressure them to do it. I don't think it makes you a sellout if you don't do it necessarily. Right. So that was my position at the time. But my position was also still defending force the vote as the valid thing we fucking elected you fucks to do. Right.
Yep.
And so they didn't do it. But then Jimmy Dore became such an easy scapegoat for this thing.
Yep.
And that was the liberal Democratic Party working to label this an extremist thing. And people, this created a big divide on the left of people who were like, well, Jimmy shouldn't be a spokesman on this stuff. But at the same time, nobody else was pushing it hard enough.
Yeah.
And I hated his own strategy. I really disagreed with how Jimmy handled it. He was a very terrible spokesman for it in a lot of ways. But at the same time, the centrist Dems created him as a spokesperson. And what Bree was pointing to is she had a list out there of, here are 20 people you can fucking talk to on this issue, besides making this a Jimmy Dore fucking issue. This is not a Jimmy Dore fucking drafted proposal.
Yep.
This is the left saying, we agree with this. And he's a big angry voice.
Right.
Who should be on board with this as well. And he was, but don't make it all about him. Why didn't you overtake him, Bowman, as a big voice on this issue?
Yeah. What were you fighting for? Why? Yeah, it was just an excuse to not have to do what they're, and that's the thing is even if they don't take super or PAC money, if you're always voting with the people who do, it doesn't matter. Then who cares? Okay, you're not compromised by the direct funding to you, but because you're such a careerist or you're too scared or whatever, you're always going to just, submit to the people who do take the PAC money. So what difference does it make?
You're almost fucking stupider. Like you're going, like I go back to this as a job. You're working at this company. Everyone at the company is taking this dirty money to support this shitty position. And you're not even taking the dirty money and you're supporting this dirty fucking position. What
Just
the
a
fuck is
player in
wrong
the
with
game.
you? What is your end goal in this? You are like the dumbest of dumb, but it's not about the money. It's about like, hey, AOC's whole life got changed because she became a TikTok star,
right?
And is getting enough money to survive. I mean, $200,000+ a year would change my life dramatically. Like I can pretend, I'm still poor, but come on, it would change my life dramatically.
Yeah,
which is what happened with him.
Yeah. And he kept talking about what do you saw the abusive left? He kept calling them abusive. Well, why would I go? She was like, well, why didn't you come on my show or anybody else's show? Like here's, Democrats are now having this come to Jesus moment where it's like, oh my God, if only we had a Rogan of the left. And it's like, well, you did because Bernie went on Rogan and he endorsed him. But you then had to once again scapegoat, Rogan, said some racist things or whatever the hell. So can't have him. So
yeah, Bree was out there.
Yeah, Bree was out there. They never
like crazy
tried to establish a left, like to really reinforce the same people that outside inside strategy. They completely abandoned the outside.
Nina Turner had a show initially too. There was
Cornel West had a show. I mean, there were lots of people.
West, Bernie was doing his thing originally. Yep. There was that whole movement got killed by the squad. Not like they could have been a part of Bree in this whole ecosystem on the left blowing up, and they shunned it all. Which is not to say Jimmy Dore will get mad because no leftists come on his show. Bree is not that person. Bree is just doing her thing.
Yeah.
It's not an ego thing with Bree.
It was just an excuse. They just didn't do it. And the fact that now he's out of that position and still couldn't have any introspection, any like awareness about or need to, he was like, well, we're going to keep going over that tactic? Are you going to keep living in the past? I'm moving forward. Let's move forward. Well, how do you know what tactic to use if you don't examine what didn't work in the past? You don't get to move forward.
You didn't examine the things in the past. You aren't working together with the other people in the squad.
Yeah.
You're not in line with the public on any of these issues. What is your plan? Fucking losers.
What's your plan? Well, I'll tell you, because then he was like, he did the thing of like, yeah, I got to go somewhere. Like, cause she was being so nice, but like she, and I love that she's like a dog with a bone. Like she was like, but then you said that people were being hostile, but I don't think that I've been out of line. Like smiling and nice. She's like, that kind of was upsetting because, like she was, but she wouldn't let it go because why is he even coming on there to discuss anything? Right. And so then he was like, yeah, I got a jet. I got to go. But anyway, hey, hope you listen to my new podcast and also my new super PAC or whatever the hell he's doing. I was like, oh, okay. So where are you getting money from that now you can't say anything at all disparaging about the squad brand? Because that's the thing, as people have pointed out. But yeah, they didn't come in calling themselves the squad. Nancy Pelosi called them that, and then they embraced it, and they got on Vogue covers and whatever the hell with Mama Bear. So that, just completely impotent band of people. If Nancy Pelosi is calling you the squad and having you hug her on the cover of a fashion magazine.
Hate is not a big enough word. I don't know what else we got.
Yeah, they brought it back a couple of times, and they went with cheaper leather. Okay. You know what I mean? Because some corporate cunt had to give himself a fucking bonus check at the end of the year. What if we made it worse, but made it look the same? Yeah. Then could our pools be bigger? Free Luigi!
Love him so much.
I've got a real problem. I get in bed with my computer, which nobody should ever do, get on YouTube and watch these compilations that sometimes are 2 or 3 hours long of old comedy bits, all just like montaged together by, I think a lot of them are done overseas and sometimes they're like backwards, but I can't get enough of his comedy, even if I've heard the joke 5 other times or it's like a different telling of it. And each one has like a new bit that I haven't heard before. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's 3 a.m. and I've just listened to 3 hours of Bill Burr again. Love him. I just love him. And that's probably going to be called terrorism soon. So,
Yeah. Well, can I just put this out there?
Yeah, put it up.
He should be our podcast guy on the left.
He has a podcast. It's twice a week.
Does he? Is he becoming the Joe Rogan? Is that new?
Well,
I don't even know about this.
It's not. It's not video. It's just audio. And
so that's the problem. You got to do video.
You got to do video. And also, I mean, I don't know how often he even has guests, but yeah, he is amazing.
He could do it. He could be the progressive leftist, but he wouldn't even be progressive. That's the beauty of him.
Yeah.
He would just be a reasonable guy who doesn't even know that much about the policy stuff specifically. But he's the every guy. He's the Joe Rogan who puts deeper thought into something.
100%. And let me tell you, years ago, sorry, I'm trying to find okay. Years ago, he said, this must have been pre-2008, like right during the election time, they're going to let Obama win because they're going to tank the economy and they want to blame it on a black guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, I actually think that's a lot of it, right? Like every time that somebody's, a representative of the US is vetoing a ceasefire or a resolution against genocide, it's always, they always make sure it's a black person there raising his hand or her hand. And I think, but he said that in 2008. I think he's really great. And yes, he does think through some things. And he also has like an ideology that isn't going to be swayed because he knows that it's the evil rich fuckers who are destroying our world. Like that's just his running.
Yeah,
that's his
it's
North Star.
Already pre-framed in a class structure of these motherfuckers. You got to start with these motherfuckers.
Yep.
And that's where all of everything is framed at that. And until they prove us otherwise, that's how we should look at every single thing from Democrats or Republicans.
I agree.
Come on, punch up pod, Bill Burr. You coward. You
coward.
Coward.
Come on. I know. I love him. I love him. Okay.
Let's spin the wheel. I don't know where we're going.
Oh, yeah.
Next,
God, I definitely need another glass, which I'm going to take
do something or another. Do it.
Yeah, baby.
Oh, look at that. I'm already filling up.
All right. I feel like we should show the other timeline while we still, it sort of fits because it's about Teslas. So there's this guy who, I don't know, he's a hacker. His name's Angry Jack, but he drives around and projects things on the back of Teslas when they're stopped. So, and by the way, if you haven't followed it, there's been a lot of protests actually at Tesla locations around the world. Everywhere.
Terrorism. That's terrorism.
Everywhere. And they're some of them they're blowing up cars. I mean, we're talking about some real stuff too. In Europe, they're hijacking banners and things, but Angry Jack, I think this is the way, like to show anyone who buys a fucking Tesla how much you suck for supporting this fucker.
Cuando pone perla en el collar, te pipián diferentes ya no son perla uno. Cuando los cubitos de hielo ya no se guarda hielo, se congela uno. Cuando es de noche en el cielo y se vuelve de día, ya todo eso cambió. Cuando el caballo entra a Troya, tú te confías, ya ardió. Uno, yo soy muy mía.
You keep saying you got something for me.
Oh my God, we're
something you call love, but confess you've been a messin' where you shouldn't have been a messin', and now someone else is.
That's awesome. I had to rent a car for some whatever. I was visiting the kids at college, and they're like, "Hey, we gave you an upgrade. It's a free Tesla." I was like, "Oh no! I'm going to take that little like the 2-door. I don't want your Tesla."
I'll take the bike.
No.
Can I have the bike?
Yeah.
Can I have the bike?
Exactly. I'm walking. Jeez.
Yeah. So that guy has a whole TikTok or Instagram on it. That's all he does. He drives around and they shoot the shit on the back of Tesla drivers.
I love that. Who is that? Oh, wait, I missed the whole thing where people were saying that I was right. What?
No.
I only saw all the Pat stuff.
These are old comments. Old comments.
And look, somebody likes Zainab likes my earrings.
Oh, those are nice. Like
thank you. Really important stuff. Yeah, I would love to make it happen with Bill Burr, but he's doing Broadway right now. Not that I could ever make it happen. I mean, I'm here, whatever. But he's in Glengarry, Glen Ross. With that.
Is he really? That's interesting.
That ass hat David Mamet. Right-wing
Did not know
person.
that.
I bet he doesn't talk about it there. All right. I mean, we have we're not done shilling. Okay.
You got shilling left?
So the guy who doesn't have a medical degree, knows nothing about healthcare, is wrong about vaccines, has a brain worm, has apparently made some adjustments at the Steak and Shake. Anyway, here he is with Sean Hannity doing a plug basically for this.
This is the guy
fast food restaurant
in charge of our healthcare in the entire United States. The COVID denier while we're in pandemic.
Measles, like running
2, 3
rampant now
at the moment.
Yeah.
This guy.
Yeah. Maha.
Beef tallow.
Oh, by the way, here you go.
If you want to just take the red mask, and I'll take those trays back for you. Okay?
Oh, okay. Is that?
This is you, Sean.
Oh, this is me. Okay, thank you.
And Secretary, this is for you. All right, gentlemen. Enjoy.
Thank you. You didn't pick up my Coke, did you?
Get your Coke. I got you, buddy.
Miss Small with the little ice.
Okay.
But I'm not going to drink it all because he's going to yell at me. I'm only kidding.
And Steak and Shake just switched out, and people are raving about these French fries. You taste them.
They're
I taste
amazing.
them.
They really are. I'm not. This is not.
When I was a kid, I travel in Europe. Europe is great. Always had great food. The French fries were always disappointment because we had the best French fries here. They had pommes frites over there, and they just didn't taste right. Today, the best French fries in the world are in Europe. I order them every time I go to Belgium or France or any place else. And the French fries here just don't taste right. And you taste these, it's a completely different experience, and the customers are raving about it. Other companies, Steak and Shake has been great. We're very grateful for them for RFKing the French fries. They turned me into a verb. But also Popeyes.
By the way, a plastic straw. Thank you. Thank God. I can't stand those paper straws. I hate them.
Charlie Kirk. RFK Jr. just ate Steak and Shake on live TV, the fast food joint that's bravely frying everything in beef tallow. This is the way, Maha.
So the people that think he's going to bring, like it's some sort of like anti-establishment health, like homeopathic kind of like he's going to bring this sort of holistic approach to food that's going to trickle to our kids. No, he's going to give them every disease on earth with no public protection for measles or fucking chicken pox or COVID or RSV or bird flu, while he has so little consistency in his message that he's pushing deep fried shit with fucking beef tallow. Like the worst things in our world for food, if you're just looking at it from food perspective, is fried food. Fried food is the enemy of health. Like, yes, I'll eat some fried shit, but nobody should. It shouldn't be so ubiquitous as it is here. And here he is with a commercial for some.
Yeah, I mean, his major presence has been, starting a new study on vaccines, the link between vaccines and autism, which has been debunked. It's been studied repeatedly, but basically debunked when the lead scientist who did the first study that made the splash was found to have fudged his data. But since then, there have been tons of studies that have shown that there is not a link. He's doing nothing for the fact that, we've had 2 chemical explosions now in California just this year that's covering the salad bowl of America, that food that goes to 70%. Yeah, covered in toxic chemical waste.
Leaching into our fucking fruit and vegetable supply for the whole fucking country.
Right.
Instead of addressing that, he's pimping fucking beef tallow fries.
We've got the fires out in LA have covered our whole city with toxic soot, and the federal government, FEMA, refuses to do what's had been advised by the EPA, which is to dig 6 inches deeper into the soil to really make sure you remove those toxins. Not talking about that. The measles explosion, not talking about that. COVID, everybody pretends is over, doesn't talk about that. Measles, they still are saying, make sure you get now they're saying you should probably get your vaccination, but not even talking about masking up, like never a mask, nothing.
In this same interview, he says, as far as I know, there's no you can't get bird flu or any of these diseases from food or eggs or anything. Complete lie. Complete fabricated lie. Obviously, transmission is already happening from these foods. And if you want to drink some raw milk, he's a proponent of raw milk. Raw milk has shit in it. It has fucking cow shit in it everywhere.
Yeah. And cow food has chicken shit in it. Like, maybe address the actual problems that are happening. How about the USDA just canceled $1 billion in local food purchasing for schools, for food banks, to buy local food to help feed people? They just canceled $1 billion in that. Speak out on that. How are people going to be healthy if they don't have health care and they don't have nutritious food?
Well, if you can't eat bad food, you can't die from that bad food. So you're just going to starve. They're starving kids now. I mean, obviously we're starving kids in Palestine as a public policy, but now we're removing the entire safety net of feeding kids in school.
They're so needy. Why would you do that?
Obviously, Democrats paved the way by pulling allegedly the what was the act called? It was part of Build Back, or part of what?
The Reduction Act, the Inflation Reduction Act.
The IRA allegedly reduced childhood poverty in half. Obviously, they changed that when they realized
it assumed that the $15 minimum wage was going to pass. That was how they
which
came
is
to
part
that
of the IRA
calculation. Yeah.
And then the nerds in Washington, whatever, decided, well, it's still going to work even if you don't give people a minimum wage. But the bottom line is those programs fed kids, and kids lived longer and were able to get out of poverty a little bit. It's an obvious thing, like, hey, feed kids. And Democrats let that go. They were just like, fuck that. It's not popular.
100%. That was on Democrats. Absolutely.
Democrats.
They let it expire. They said they were going to fight for it in the next one, and then they just pretended it never existed. Nobody in this country should ever feel any help from the government. If you feel it for a millisecond, they will yank it away. I mean, what is the plan? Tariffs. That's the only plan. And I even understand, I get why, I mean, I want to bring manufacturing back here. Of course, I want people to be employed, but there's no plan there. There's no investment in the infrastructure of opening up new factories, of bringing manufacturing all the parts, or as many as possible. It's just throwing shit at a wall, and they'll all, make out like bandits in a race to their bunkers.
They will. And I think what we've been preaching about as leftist anti-capitalists for a long time is that things are escalating in this direction to where we're less powerful, more people are going to starve, there are less social programs, but it's all accelerated so much now that it's just like, I want to warn people about how bad it's going to get, because we haven't really faced a true, like, I mean,
Revolution.
No, but as a middle class or lower person, we
Right.
felt the pain of these policies for a long time. But that pain is not on that gradual scale it used to be. That pain in the next year or two is going to be a lot more for people who are, especially people who are below the poverty line. You are going to be punished severely. So like, we cannot otherize this, or, whatever. It's happening now. Like, if you're at risk of needing any of these programs, they're not going to be here. It's going to get worse. The economy is going to fuck you severely.
Yeah, and I mean, there already are
Cheer
so
up.
many
Here's a cat video.
food
We got a
deserts,
cat
but
video coming.
it's gonna get worse. Yeah, let's have one like fun thing. But we haven't talked about COVID today at all. But there was a study that just came out, and I mean, it's very clear. But a new paper, this was just 2 weeks ago. New paper examines why COVID-19 mortality was higher in the U.S. than in some East Asian countries. Stanford-led international team found that cultural defaults linked to individualism can be less effective at reducing pandemic deaths than those tied to collectivism. And in my ideology, it's about everything: your health, your well-being, your bounty in life, your happiness is all. Connections are really important. Making those connections and believing that you're part of a society.
Well, the individualism is like, yeah, that's how they get away with, like, oh, they're going to tell you to wear a mask. Oh,
yeah.
Individualism. You can't drive your car. All this scare stuff, when it's like, you can drive your car. No one's taking away gasoline. No one's taking away your car. You can wear a mask and no one's going to force things on you. There's no forced vaccines. That's not a thing. That's long gone. But, you could literally save 1 million people's lives if we all started fucking masking, at least in hospitals and just the obvious fucking places.
Yeah.
But we've regressed so far that we're letting people go to cancer wards. Half the cancer ward isn't wearing a mask.
Oh, I mean,
Doesn't believe in that. They don't even believe in that.
Yeah.
They're so far. I want to punch so many people. I don't know. We need a third guest. We can punch. We can like just shit on every show. We need to find, like, I don't want to punch down, but maybe we just find a really dumb centrist every show. Like, hey, you want to come on our show?
Yeah, we'd love to have. You'll get the punch up button.
On.
Okay. Totally agree with everything. Really love getting to spend this time with all of you, because it does feel like a community. And I do think that the rapid pace, the accelerationism of both parties is forcing, every day there are huge protests. And I know that, we're all frustrated that those don't seem to result in any tangible change, but I think it's at least a start. And when we look back on this, if we are lucky enough to survive it, we will see that this was the beginning of collective action and direct action, and knowing that nobody's coming to save you except for your society. And I feel like that is what's palpable on the streets, which is why we show so many clips of people protesting and speaking out, because I feel like it's contagious. That is infectious, and it's what we all need to feel powerful, because otherwise it's very easy to want to just crawl into a hole. So
it is, and we're seeing that. And I don't want to discourage anyone from protesting, because that does, it's a visual reminder for people. It's solidarity when you're out there in the streets.
Yeah.
And when the general strike happens, it's going to be because we all are on board with how fucked this is. And there's a progression. Like when things need to change, you need to see people in the street. You need to see some violence. You need all these things. Like, like until there's some violence, people don't realize historically that this is a big enough problem. It doesn't affect enough people. So like people who are like anti-violence, you know, whatever. You've never studied the history of change, you know.
Nothing has ever changed without it. But like,
But to bring this back to the street stuff, this is why Democrats are against the protesters as well. They're equally against the protesters. So
they are very comfortable in their privilege. Absolutely. They are equally part of the problem. 100%. One good piece of news before we go is we're very excited that on Sunday, comedian Kate Willett will join us at the top of the show. So we will have some good lefty comedy before then we descend right back into all this. But so that's on Sunday's shit show. We're excited about that. And until then, thanks you guys. We love you. Keep punching up.
Cheers.
Cheers.